Let's dive in. Today, we're tackling those moon landing conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
You know, the ones that just never seem to go away.
Right.
We're going to be exploring all those claims and evidence and all the arguments that people make about this really enduring piece of, I guess you could say, pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be pulling all of our research from that Wikipedia article on moon landing conspiracy theories.
Okay.
Our goal here is to help you navigate all the different theories and maybe even uncover a few aha moments for yourself along the way.
Yeah, I think that's what makes these theories so interesting.
Yeah.
Is they really tap into like our sense of wonder.
Totally. But also
our skepticism about big events and like people in power.
Yeah, it's like this tug of war between wanting to believe in something extraordinary and also wondering if it was all just a little bit too good to be true.
Exactly.
So how did this whole "we never went to the moon" thing get started?
Well, a lot of it, you can trace it back to one book.
Oh, really?
Called We Never Went to the Moon.
Okay.
It was self-published in 1976 by a guy named Bill Kaysing.
Kaysing. Was he like a rocket scientist or?
He wasn't a rocket scientist, but he had worked as a technical writer for Rocketdyne, which was the company that built the engines for the Saturn V rocket.
Okay.
So
he was
kind of had his foot in the door,
Yeah.
but he wasn't like a hands-on engineer.
So not really the background you'd expect
from
someone claiming this huge hoax.
Exactly.
But his book must have really struck a nerve with people.
It did, yeah.
What did he say?
He argued that landing on the moon was so ridiculously improbable, practically impossible, and he actually put a number on it.
Did he really?
He said there was like a 0.0017% chance of success.
Okay.
And suggested that faking it would be much easier.
He said it was easier to fake a moon landing than to actually go.
That was his argument.
I mean, wouldn't the Soviets with all their, technology and spies have been all over that?
That's actually one of the strongest counter-arguments, is that if it were a hoax, the Soviets would have known.
Oh, yeah.
And exposing a U.S. hoax would have been a huge win for them during the Cold War.
Absolutely.
And not only did they never make that accusation, their own encyclopedia, the Great Soviet Encyclopedia, actually lists the landings as fact.
Wow.
So
that's pretty compelling.
Yeah.
So maybe Kaysing
Yeah.
wasn't the most reliable source?
And maybe not.
But the conspiracy didn't end there, right?
Oh, definitely not.
Okay.
In the 1980s, the Flat Earth Society joined in.
Oh, really?
Accusing NASA of staging the landings.
Wow.
And they said they had help from Hollywood.
Oh, my gosh.
They even threw in names like Walt Disney.
No way.
And Stanley Kubrick.
A Hollywood production on the moon.
Right.
Talk about a blockbuster.
Yes. And speaking of Hollywood,
yeah,
some people believe that the 1978 film Capricorn 1, which was about a faked Mars mission, might have added fuel to the fire.
Especially with, post-Vietnam War.
Right.
Distrust of the government.
Yeah.
Yeah, a movie like that could feed into that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So we've got the origins of the theory.
Yeah.
We know where it came from.
But what about the why?
Right, why?
Like, why would they fake it?
What are the reasons people say
Exactly
for the U.S. doing this?
Well, a big one is the Cold War. And the space race, landing on the moon first, was a massive symbolic victory for the U.S.
Huge.
But conspiracy theorists suggest that maybe it was just too much of a risk, too expensive, and that faking it was the easier path to victory.
Yeah, I can see that.
President Kennedy made it very clear that going to the moon was about pushing boundaries, about doing what was hard.
Yeah. So wouldn't that have been a massive gamble for the U.S. considering how closely the Soviets were watching?
That's a good point. And what about that whole $30 billion budget for the Apollo program?
Yeah. Conspiracy theorists argue that faking the landings would guarantee continued funding and avoid any embarrassment of failure.
But didn't NASA face tons of scrutiny?
That's a good point.
After the Apollo 1 fire? I mean, that doesn't sound like an organization that's trying to just sweep failures under the rug.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
And that tragedy really showed that NASA was willing to deal with the risks of space exploration head on.
And the idea that NASA faked it to avoid some live broadcast disaster doesn't really hold up either.
Right, because they didn't even have live video during the landings or takeoffs.
Back then.
Yeah.
Just because of the limits of technology.
Exactly. So faking it to avoid a PR nightmare.
Yeah.
doesn't make a lot of sense.
So what other motives?
Yeah. What other motives do these theories suggest?
Well, there's the idea that the moon landings were a distraction from the Vietnam War.
The classic distract the public with something shiny tactic. But didn't the Apollo program...
It did.
Wind down gradually.
It did. By 1972.
Okay.
NASA's budget had been slashed by 42%.
Wow.
Compared to its peak.
So, you know.
It wasn't like this sudden cover-up.
It was more the Vietnam War, competition with other programs.
Right.
All those things contributed to Apollo's decline.
Yeah. So we've got some background on where these theories came from, why some people believe that the U.S. might have faked it.
Yeah.
And now comes the fun part.
Let's get into it.
Diving into the claims, the evidence, and ready to unpack some of these really intriguing points.
Let's do it. So let's get into some of those specific pieces of evidence that conspiracy theorists like to bring up.
Right.
You know, they love to point to like little oddities in the photos and films from the Apollo missions.
Yeah, those were always the ones that really catch people's attention.
They do. Yeah, like the missing stars or the waving flag.
Yeah.
The weird shadows.
Yeah, those are the ones that stick in your mind.
They do, yeah, and they seem pretty convincing at first glance.
But but when you actually like dig a little deeper, a lot of these so-called oddities actually have perfectly logical explanations. And they're rooted in like the science of photography and the unique environment of the moon.
Okay, so let's break down a few of the big ones.
First up, the missing stars.
Okay.
Conspiracy theorists say if those photos and videos were really shot on the moon, we should see stars in the background.
Yeah. Seems like a fair point.
Yeah.
But think about it this way.
Okay.
All of the Apollo landings happened during lunar daytime.
Okay.
So the surface of the moon was bathed in sunlight, making the sky appear bright.
Okay.
Just like it does here on Earth during the day.
So it's like trying to stargaze at noon.
Exactly.
You're not going to see anything.
You're not going to see much.
Right.
And remember, the astronauts' eyes were adjusted to that bright lunar landscape.
Okay.
Making the fainter stars even harder to see.
Right.
And their cameras were set for daylight exposure to capture all the details on the surface. Yeah. Those settings wouldn't have picked up the faint light from stars.
Makes sense, but wait a minute. Didn't some of the Apollo missions actually capture photos with stars?
They did.
Really?
Apollo 16, for example, carried a special UV camera that was designed to operate in the lunar module's shadow.
Oh, wow.
So it was blocking out that direct sunlight.
Okay.
And it took pictures of Earth and a bunch of stars
that
are actually invisible to our eyes.
Oh.
But they show up bright in UV light.
That's cool.
And get this.
Yeah?
Later observations from orbiting UV telescopes actually confirmed those star sightings.
So not only were there stars in some of the pictures, but they were the right stars.
Exactly.
The ones you would expect to see in that location in space. That's
case closed.
Yeah, case closed. Wait, what about that waving flag?
Oh, the waving flag.
This one always seemed fishy to me.
Right.
Because how can a flag wave on the moon when there's no air?
That's a classic one.
Yeah.
So conspiracy theorists point to how the flag seems to ripple and flutter like it's caught in a breeze. But the answer's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
That flag was mounted on a telescopic pole with a horizontal rod at the top to make it stand out. And that design, plus the way the flag was folded during storage, created those ripples and that illusion of movement, even though it was perfectly still.
So the way it was set up, combined with those creases from being folded, made it look like it was waving in the wind.
Just a trick of the eye.
It's all about perspective, I guess.
Exactly. And if you watch the video footage of the astronauts setting up the flag, you can see that it only moves when they're handling it. Once they let go.
Yeah.
It stays put.
No lunar breeze required.
No lunar breeze.
Didn't Mythbusters actually test this one out?
They did.
Okay, what did they do?
They built their own setup.
Oh, wow.
To mimic that lunar flag.
And they proved that that waving is just a trick of how the flag was designed and displayed.
So another one bites the dust.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about the shadows. In these Apollo photos.
Right.
Some people say that the angles and the colors are off.
Yeah.
Implying that artificial lights were used.
Right, like it was a movie set.
Yeah.
Right? But shadows on the moon can behave in unexpected ways.
Okay.
Because there are multiple light sources bouncing around.
Like what?
You've got the sun, obviously.
Okay.
But you've also got sunlight reflected off the Earth.
Oh.
You've got light bouncing off the lunar surface itself.
Okay.
You've got reflections from the astronauts in the lunar module.
Oh, wow. So all those reflective surfaces, they
can really mess with how the shadows look.
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
But is there anything that definitively debunks?
Well, if you analyze photos taken from different angles,
you'll notice that all the shadows converge toward a single vanishing point on the horizon.
Okay.
And that's exactly what you'd expect.
Right.
With a single light source like the sun.
Right.
But artificial lights, on the other hand, would create shadows converging toward multiple vanishing points.
So it's like basic geometry.
It is.
Proving that the sun was the only significant light source.
Right.
Okay, what about those claims of identical backgrounds in photos that were supposedly taken miles apart?
Right.
That sounds like a smoking gun for the fake backdrop theory.
It does.
Yeah.
But again, the moon's environment plays a role here.
Okay.
Unlike Earth, the moon has no atmosphere to blur distant objects. Right. So they appear much clearer and closer than they actually are.
So what might look like a small hill
could
actually be a mountain range miles away.
Exactly. And without familiar landmarks
like trees or buildings, it can be tough to judge distance accurately on the moon. So you combine that with the lack of atmospheric haze, and you can get that illusion of identical backgrounds.
Okay, so it's almost like the moon is playing tricks on our perception of depth and distance.
Exactly.
Are there any specific examples
There are.
where this identical background claim has been debunked?
Absolutely. One famous case involves a photo taken by Alan Shepard during Apollo 14.
Okay.
Conspiracy theorists claimed that the background matched another photo that was taken miles away. But closer analysis revealed that the identical background was actually a distant mountain range.
Oh, wow.
Proving that it wasn't just a painted backdrop.
So once again, it's a case of perspective.
Right.
And those unique visual conditions on the moon.
Exactly.
Leading to misinterpretations.
Wow. We've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
From missing stars to wonky shadows. What else do these theories focus on?
Well, there's the concern about radiation. Like the Van Allen belts, which are zones of energetic charged particles that surround Earth, are often cited as a reason why the astronauts couldn't have survived a trip to the moon.
Yeah, I remember learning about those in school.
Yeah.
They sound pretty intense.
They can be.
Yeah.
But the Apollo missions were very meticulously planned to minimize radiation exposure. The spacecraft followed a trajectory that took them through the least intense parts of the belts. And they zipped through those zones at high speeds. So that also reduced the time they spent.
So smart planning and a need for speed.
Exactly.
But wasn't there also something about the spacecraft itself?
Oh, yeah.
That, like, protected the astronauts?
The Apollo spacecraft had aluminum hulls that were designed to shield against radiation. And get this. James Van Allen, the scientist who discovered the Van Allen belts, actually debunked this idea that they would have been lethal.
So if the guy who discovered them says it's okay, I'm inclined to believe him. But what about the moon itself? Are there claims about the lunar environment that fuel these theories?
You bet. One of the most common ones is the lack of a blast crater under the lunar modules. You know, conspiracy theorists say that those powerful descent engines should have carved out a visible crater during landing.
But what they often overlook is the nature of the lunar surface.
Exactly.
What's different about it?
Well, the moon's covered in a layer of fine dust and rocky debris called regolith. And this stuff is really compact beneath the surface. Plus, the moon's gravity is much weaker than Earth's, meaning the force of the engine exhaust wasn't as strong.
So the compact surface and weaker gravity means less of a blast from those engines. But was there any evidence at all
Yeah.
of the engines impacting the surface?
Yes. If you look closely at the photos and videos from the landing sites, you can see clear signs of scouring and disturbance around where the engines fired.
So it all comes down to understanding the physics at play and how the moon's environment is different from our own.
Exactly.
Are there any other claims about the moon itself?
Well, there's the mystery of the footprints.
Okay.
Like the well-preserved footprints and the lunar dust.
Right, because without moisture, they should have.
Right, they should crumbled away.
Yeah.
But again, it's about understanding that regolith, it's not like earth sand.
Okay.
It's made up of these sharp, jagged particles that stick together in the vacuum of space.
So those jagged edges lock together.
Yeah.
Kind of like powdered sugar.
Yeah, exactly. And they help those footprints hold their shape.
And scientists have
actually recreated this.
Oh, wow.
Using simulated lunar regolith.
Okay.
Here on Earth to confirm that those footprints are totally plausible.
That's pretty amazing how they can debunk these seemingly simple observations.
Yeah. But there's a lot of science that goes into it.
Yeah. So we've talked about all this evidence from NASA.
Yeah.
But what about independent sources?
Oh, that's a great question.
Does anything outside of NASA support these moon landings?
And that leads us to some of the most compelling evidence of all.
Okay.
So let's dive into that.
Okay. So we've seen how a lot of those conspiracy theory claims kind of fall apart.
Yeah.
When you consider the science behind them.
Right.
But you mentioned something about independent evidence.
Right.
Stuff that comes from outside of NASA.
Exactly.
What kind of evidence are we talking about?
Well, one of the most impressive pieces of evidence comes from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, or LRO.
The LRO.
It's a spacecraft that's been orbiting the moon since 2009.
Okay.
Taking super high-resolution images of the surface.
Wait, are you telling me that we have photos?
Yes.
From a spacecraft that's orbiting the moon right now?
We do. And the LRO has actually captured images of the Apollo landing sites. Showing the lunar modules, the rovers, even the tracks left by the astronauts.
You're saying we can actually see this stuff?
You can.
Left behind by the Apollo missions from a spacecraft that's up there right now.
Exactly.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
It is pretty amazing.
But photos aren't the only independent evidence, right?
No, you're right.
Okay, what else?
Remember those 840 pounds of moon rocks?
Oh, yeah, those moon rocks.
Yeah.
The Apollo missions brought back.
Exactly what happened to all those rocks.
Yeah, what happened to them?
Scientists from all over the world have analyzed them, and the conclusion is clear.
What's that?
They are from the moon.
Okay.
And they have unique characteristics that set them apart from Earth rocks and meteorites.
Like what?
Well, they show signs of being formed in an airless environment.
Okay.
They have unique chemical fingerprints, and many of them are far older than the oldest rocks found on Earth.
So those moon rocks are like physical proof?
Yeah, they're like little pieces of the moon that we brought back.
That's pretty hard to argue with.
It is.
So we've got photographic evidence from the LRO.
Right.
We've got physical moon rocks.
Yep.
And didn't we also say we had tracking data?
We do.
From all over the world?
Yes, we have tracking data from different countries and organizations around the world that confirm the flight paths of the Apollo missions.
So it wasn't just the U.S. keeping tabs on things.
Exactly. It was independently verified.
Wow, that adds another layer of validation to it all.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
Have you ever heard of retroreflectors?
Retroreflectors. Can't say that I have.
They're these special mirrors that reflect light back to its source, no matter the angle. And the Apollo missions left several of these.
Oh, really?
On the moon.
Wow.
As part of a lunar laser ranging experiment.
So scientists here on Earth can bounce lasers off these things.
They can.
On the moon and measure the distance.
And it's super accurate.
Wow. So we're still using equipment left on the moon.
Yeah.
By the Apollo astronauts.
Pretty cool, huh?
That's amazing. And the fact that those lasers bounce back consistently means that those missions really
you had to go there to put them there.
Reach the moon. So we've got photographic evidence.
Right.
We've got moon rocks, tracking data.
Yep.
Laser reflections.
It's pretty compelling.
It's very compelling. So why, with all this evidence, do these moon landing conspiracy theories persist?
That is the question, isn't it?
It is. Is it just a lack of information?
I think it goes beyond just missing information.
Okay.
Because, plenty of people have access to the facts and the debunking.
Yeah.
But the theories still stick around.
So people are choosing to believe the conspiracy.
It seems like it.
Even when faced with
right.
evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, and there are some deeper psychological and social factors at play.
Okay, like what? Why would people do that?
Well, conspiracy theories often offer a sense of order in a world that can feel chaotic and unpredictable.
Okay.
They provide simple explanations. They point to hidden enemies, and they make people feel like they're in the know, like they're possessing secret knowledge.
Right. It's like being a part of an exclusive club.
Exactly.
Holding on to the truth that other people
they're in the know.
Just aren't ready for yet or something.
Exactly.
So when it comes to the moon landings, questioning such a monumental achievement can be appealing.
Yeah.
It challenges the narrative of human progress.
And it feeds into that distrust of authority.
So how widespread is this belief?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, but polls suggest that a surprisingly large number of people across different countries and background have doubts about the moon landings.
Like how many people are we talking?
Some estimates say as many as 20% of Americans question the authenticity.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, it's significant.
And I remember reading that Fox TV special.
Oh, right.
Back in 2001.
Yeah.
Which presented the conspiracy theory as a legitimate question. Actually caused a surge in skepticism.
It really did.
About the moon landings.
And it highlights the influence of media and how even just the presentation of false information can sway public opinion.
It also shows how quickly these theories can spread.
Yeah.
Especially when amplified by a seemingly credible source.
Exactly.
It's a reminder that we all need to be careful about what we consume.
Right.
And where we get our information.
Absolutely.
So with all that said, what should we take away from all of this?
I think the most important takeaway is the value of informed skepticism.
Okay.
It's good to question things, to dig deeper.
Right.
Not just accept what you're told.
But that skepticism should be grounded in evidence.
Exactly.
And critical thinking.
Yeah.
Not just a blanket rejection of facts. It's about finding that sweet spot between curiosity and critical thinking. For me, this whole deep dive has been a real reminder of what an incredible achievement the moon landings were.
Yeah.
It's a testament to human ingenuity and courage and collaboration.
Absolutely.
And it's something to really be in awe of. And while it's fun to explore the what-ifs and entertain those conspiracy theories, I think it's also important to step back and remember the wonder of what we as a species accomplished.
Right.
We went to the moon.
It's pretty amazing.
And that's a story.
It is.
Really worth celebrating.
Yeah.
So to all our listeners out there, keep questioning. Keep exploring.
Absolutely.
And keep looking up at the stars with a sense of wonder.
I love that.
And who knows? Maybe someday you'll be a part of the next giant leap.
It could be you.
For humankind.
Exactly.